Hey there. If this is your first video of mine, my name is Raelan Agle, and if this is not your first video, thank you so much for joining me again. I am so excited to have Sofia Lundahl here with me today. She is a clinical psychologist, an occupational psychologist, and a yoga teacher. So I really am looking forward to picking her brain and sharing her expertise and knowledge on working with people facing chronic health conditions like chronic fatigue syndrome or ME, and the strategies and the tools that she helps them with to return to work. So Sofia, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Thank you for letting me join.
Why don't you tell everybody where you are in the world?
I live in Sweden. I'm in Uppsala, right next to Stockholm. So that's where I am right now.
Yeah, can you tell us a bit about yourself, about the work that you do, what led you to doing the type of work that you do?
Well, I'm a trained clinical psychologist, and I'm also an occupational psychologist. And I work within occupational healthcare, which is kind of a work we do towards the employer. So employers contact us when they have employees that need support in, for example, recovery, mental illnesses, going back to work, and also sometimes conflict management. Sometimes they need help with developing their organization. So it's a lot of various things that I do. But I meet a lot of people who suffers from stress connected to both their work and private life, and also people with different kind of fatigue conditions caused by different things. Sometimes chronic fatigue conditions such as ME. Most of my work is getting people back to work from sick leave, from both shorter and longer sick leaves. And that can be quite tough because usually when you leave work because you can't work anymore, you're really not able to do your work as you used to. You're too tired. Most of the time I work with recovery, meeting individuals who have had to go on sick leave because they couldn't work anymore due to different fatigue conditions. And when you go on your sick leave, it's quite traumatic for some people because you don't recognize yourself. You can't do the work that you used to. And when coming back, it's very difficult for people to know, how should I come back? Should I just go all in, trying to do the things that I used to? Some people really love their jobs. So they just want to go all in and do the same kind of job that they did when they were healthy. Some people are really scared of going back. They might remember their job as stressful, as a difficult place to be at, and they don't want to go back at all. And a lot of people don't know what they should think of or how they can have a healthy recovery.
That's incredible. I don't know if we have something like that in Canada. Maybe we do, and I just wasn't aware of it. When I finally did go back to work, I was in the US. I don't know what they have here, but I remember when I was first preparing to go back to work, I was terrified because I had worked so hard to get my health back. And it's a really scary thing to be throwing yourself back into a situation where you feel like it might undo all the hard work that you've done. So that's amazing that this exists in Sweden.
Honestly, everyone feels the same way. A lot of people are really scared and they need a lot of support. When people don't get that support, it can have consequences. Some people go back to work and they try to work for like 2 months and then they go back on a sick leave again because they can't do it anymore because it was too quick, or they did the same thing that they did when they were healthy and working. So it's really important to do it the right way to prevent from going on sick leave again.
So at what point do you get called in, and what does that look like?
I sometimes get called in when people don't feel good at work. Some people are working, but they're very stressed or tired. Some people have conditions that just depression or anxiety. And then I help them with, getting a good work situation from that. For some people, I meet them when they are working, but it's gone too far. So they need to leave work for a while. Sometimes I meet people when they're not working, but most of the time I get called in when people need to go back to work or a while before that, because that's like where I can do most work. That's when we can look at how can you get a healthy recovery when coming back to work. Because I believe that working is a really important part of the recovery. It's important for us, for people in general, to do something. Like, we need routines, we need things to do, we need social activities, and work is, it's a big part of our lives. It's really important for us to have a functioning working situation. We spend a lot of hours at work. So I feel like it's so important that everyone gets the chance to get like a good relation of coming back to work. So usually I help people with step-by-step going back, and I work with both the employee and the employer to support them both.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point that you made about the importance of it. I find too, for me, it was part of the psychological aspect was just bringing back my confidence in life. Like, okay, I'm fully back. I'm fully okay. Because there was this fear lingering in the back of my mind always, like, could I handle working? So I think, at least for me, it was a big step. It's something I needed to do to show myself that I was okay. And that this was behind me. When you're working with people going back to work, what exactly does that look like? What kind of support do you provide? Is it an all-at-once type of thing, or do people go back gradually? Can you walk us through that a little bit?
Usually, I meet them gradually. Like, for example, the first time I meet someone, if they're working or not, I usually go through like the basis, like the routines, like the things everyone needs in life to be healthy. And that might sound a bit weird. People come to me to get help to get back to work, and I start talking about routines. But that's the most important thing. If the routines doesn't work, you can't go back to your job. So I usually actually start talking about, sleep, eating, exercise, those things. Then we talk a bit about other important things in life, like social support. And also, I use a lot of like psychological education with my clients. So I want clients to learn about themselves, to learn how recovery works, and to learn how to recover. We need recovery, we need rest. And that's really important for us to be able to go back. And we need to know how to dispose our energy. Like, when do I need to rest? When can I be active and get that balance? Because most people have no idea like how to think about that balance at all. So that's kind of like where I start. And then when people are ready to go back to work, I start with kind of like a checklist, actually, some advice and like a checklist, like, this is what you need to think about when you go back to work. So it's very like hands-on. And by that, people have rules when they go back. Like, these are things I need to follow, because we've never really had rules to enable us to take care of ourselves when we go to work. We only have like rules, like, I need to be there between 9 to 5. I have a lunch break. I need to perform a lot. I need to get these things done. That's the rules we usually have. Like, the kind of rules I give is like, you need breaks. You need a lot of breaks. You need to have set working hours so you don't work overtime. You need to have like specific working tasks that aren't too difficult, and so on. It's different for every country, but in Sweden we have like a system, so you don't go on like full-time working immediately. First, you start working like 25%, so it's like 2 hours a day. Then you start working 4 hours a day. Then you start working 6 hours a day. So you gradually step. And some people work 2 hours a day for a year. Some people work 2 hours a day for 2 weeks. So it's very different, and so on. But the first step is to get those 2 hours working, get those rules working.
What are the typical barriers or obstacles or places people get stuck, do you find? Like the common pitfalls, I guess, of going back to work?
Wow, it's so different. I think the most common one is probably that people want to do too much too early. They're like, well, I'm gonna work like 2 hours a day. I mean, that's nothing. I need to be effective. I'm not gonna take a break when I'm only gonna work 2 hours. Although I said that if you work 2 hours, you're still gonna need like 10, 15 minutes in the middle, because this is gonna be so much. Your brain is gonna be exhausted from this because you haven't been doing this much activity for a while. And when people when they don't follow the rules, when they don't follow like the advice on the checklist, it means that they get too tired. And after 2 weeks, they feel like, I can't work at all anymore. and they feel like they sit back. And it's like, really, it's no big deal, really, because you can always go on a sick leave again and then start on, and it's okay. But for your self-confidence, it feels like it's failure. And that's not good for everyone, because if you've been off work for so long, you feel like a failure already. That's the most difficult thing that I meet, is that people feel like failures. They have so many negative thoughts. They feel depressed because they've been passive basically for so long, and they haven't known like what to do while they've been off work, and they don't know what to do when they start working. So that's like the most difficult thing that I meet.
It's so unfortunate, because illness and injury, these things obviously aren't our fault. But you're right. Nope. I hear the same thing. I felt the same thing. There's so much guilt around it. There is this feeling of failure, even though none of it is our fault. So I could see how a failed return to work could be psychologically a tough thing to process. I'm just thinking about people around the world who are watching. So I would imagine the first step would be to look into your country to see if you have this kind of support available, because I would imagine, like me, I'm like, I don't know what we have in Canada. Maybe we have this. Didn't even occur to me to really look. So I imagine step one would be to really look into where you live and see if this is available, if you're thinking about going back to work. But I'm wondering about for people who live places that do not have this type of support, and pretty much are just going to have to throw themselves back into a full-time job. Are there any, like, what would you say to them? Are there any tips or strategies that you think could help them be more successful with that process?
That's such a difficult question, because I just want to say, don't go back full-time, because it's not good for you. This is also very difficult, because I can give an advice on what I recommend. But even though, even if you live in a country where there is a support system, it doesn't guarantee that the support system works. Even if it has a support system, it still affects your personal economy. And even if your country doesn't have a support system, some people might still be able to work 25%, 50% because they have the economy to do that. So it's so different. Well, I would like to talk about time, because even though you work, let's say 8 hours a day, for example, which is standard in Sweden, 8 hours a day is a full working day. Maybe you can work those hours, but not be as productive as you usually work, because that's not going to work. If you're going to go back working a full day, I do not recommend that. It's so difficult to give an advice on that, because I don't recommend it. But maybe try to work in a slower pace, to take a lot of breaks, and have a supportive manager, have a supportive employer. That's the most important thing. The most important thing is not to have an occupational psychologist to support you. It's to have a good relationship with your manager and your employer. That's the most important thing. Because if they can support you, it doesn't matter if your country has a support system or not. If they can support you, maybe they can allow you to work 6 hours a day. Maybe they can allow you to have easier working tasks, and so on.
And that in itself is really good advice. My advice is not to do this. So if at all possible, you might be setting yourself up to fail if you're jumping back into full-time work right away. So anything you can do to facilitate part-time hours. I would imagine with COVID and the way the world is changing, it might be an option to accommodate more working from home. I know that's still working and that's still hard, but there might be, because the way we look at work is changing, there might be some extra accommodations that you could ask for that could make things a bit easier.
And that's both good and bad. I find working during COVID, this thing with working from home, for some people it's really good, because you don't need to commute. You can just sit at your desk at your kitchen table and work, and then just shut your computer and so on. So it might be easier. Some people find it good not to have the social interaction, because they get tired from it, and to not have the pressure from colleagues asking you things. You can just turn off your email and log out, and you don't need to talk to anyone. So that's a good thing. But for most people, I found it to be bad, because it's hard for people to kind of set boundaries for themselves. If I say that you're going to work 2 hours a day, you're going to shut your computer at 10 o'clock. You're not going to do that. You're going to sit for a bit longer, because you know that you're used to it. You can do it, and you have this and this and this and this to do. So you're probably going to keep working. So also the setting, we're reminded of work in our kitchen if we work in our kitchen. And it's kind of a nice thing to go to work, stay at your office, and then go home and you left it. You can rest. You can leave it until tomorrow. Also, I forgot to say that one of the first advice I give when you go back to work, if this is possible, of course, with your manager and employer, I recommend that the first days, maybe the first week at work, is just about being at work, just being in the office, just meeting your colleagues, just being in the area where you left work, just to get used to going there. For some people, just commuting to work is going to be tough. Just walking inside the door is going to be tough. And it's going to take a lot of energy. For a lot of people, they're thinking well, 2 hours, what is that? And after 15 minutes, they're exhausted because it's been so many impressions. And that's tough for itself. So that's also an important thing to remember.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I'm just thinking about the majority of people that I talk to that watch my channel. I know it's not everybody, but a lot of people facing conditions like ME, CFS. And so many of us seem to be these overachiever, go types. And that's, we have a tendency to burn ourselves out. We have a tendency to want to do everything, full tilt. So I imagine it's a challenging thing to go back to work with that mentality, be a bit of a slacker off the start.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
You feel like you have so much to prove, I would guess, after time off, and you just want to get in there and show that you have value and just, but for a long-term success plan, easing yourself in like that is really what's going to get you there. So I know you're a yoga teacher as well. I mean, what insights do you have around health and healing and the mind-body connection from your work doing that?
Well, I work as a yoga teacher also, besides my work as a psychologist. And I also do work where I merge the yoga teacher and psychologist title together. So I have workshops and I have courses that we look at how can we, with psychological knowledge and science and, ancient yoga theories and the whole mind-body connection, how can we merge these together and find something effective? And when we talk about fatigue conditions and also stress, I love to talk about stress. I think it's a really interesting thing as well. When we talk about these things, it's impossible not to talk about your body when you talk about fatigue, right? It's physical. And the mind and the body are connected. If I think or feel something, my body is going to react to that. If I feel something in my body, my mind, my thoughts, my feelings are going to react to that. So it's all connected. So I feel that my yoga teaching has made me more interested in the body and the physiological processes and how they affect our minds. And that's very important because one of the main things to know about when we talk about fatigue conditions is rest and recovery and physical recovery. And within yoga, we have a lot of relaxation techniques, ways to exercise your body in gentle ways. And a main thing in yoga is to feel your body, feel your feelings, notice your thoughts. And that's really important facts when working with recovery and coming back to work and coming back to life. I feel like there's a gap between psychologists and doctors, physiotherapists, and so on. And if we think about yogic theories, and if we think about Chinese medicine or those kind of areas, it's much more connected. And I think it's important that we merge those two together and that we learn about both the body and the mind when we want to become healthy and feel good.
Yeah, it seems like most people with ME, CFS, the people that I generally talk to and speak to, it's something we're forced into learning, something a lot of us had zero knowledge about prior to becoming unwell. But we need to learn to appreciate that connection to help us figure out how to heal and get past this. And I love that you love to talk about stress, because these days I do as well. So I'd love to pick your brain on that. What is it about stress that you love to talk about, and what is the connection you see with all of this to stress?
Maybe I should mention as well that my background as psychologist is also within CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and also ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy.
Okay.
I just want to mention that because that has a lot to do like the yoga theories and so on. ACT is like, I don't know if you call it like a third wave of kind of CBT. It's like the newer wave of treatment options. And it has included a lot of theories from Buddhism and yoga theories and so on. But it also includes the body to it. So it might be important to know, like, that's my background as a psychologist, because you can have a lot of different backgrounds as a psychologist. Okay, so why I love talking about it. I love talking about it because, like, one of the main like models within CBT is the model that thoughts, feelings, body, and behaviors are connected. If I have a thought, I'm not good enough, I'm not going to be able to do my work well when I come back. That will bring on a feeling useless, incapable, low, and so on. My body might react to that. I might get like pressure on my chest. I might feel like sweaty. I might feel nervous, like physically nervous. And that will lead to behavior. Maybe I'll just stay up all night because I'm so agitated of going back to work. Maybe my behavior will be that I won't go to work because I'm so nervous about it, and so on. And that will lead to more negative thoughts, more negative feelings. My body will react to it. And, it's a vicious circle. Mm-hmm. So that's why I feel like the body is such an important part of this. And stress is so physiological. Like, stress isn't something we can control. Our feelings and thoughts isn't either something we can control. And I mean, we can't control if they come up or not. You can't just decide that I don't want to feel anything or I don't want to think anything. But what we can control are our behaviors. And that's what we should focus on. We need to accept our thoughts. We need to meet our thoughts. We need to see our thoughts. Same thing with feelings. Same thing with our body. Because when you're stressed, your body tells you you're stressed. Like, your body's excellent at telling how you feel. You just need to stop and listen. But mostly we don't stop and listen because it's scary. It means we need to change. So we just keep going on. But one thing that I think is really interesting, like when I started doing yoga, and also when I met clients that done like this like courses that are merge psychology and yoga together, it's that some people don't want to talk. Some people need other ways of healing. Some people need to feel, then they can talk. Not all therapy has to go through words to begin with. And I think that's also an important thing. Like, if you have a fatigue condition, most people are at some point so tired that they don't know how to express themselves. And if you go to psychologists and you need to sit there for an hour and explain how you feel, it's too tiring. Mm-hmm. But if you can learn how to listen to your body, how to do meditation, or how to do some other like physical exercise, or it doesn't have to be yoga, it's like just something that connects to your body, you might be able to heal in a different way at first. Then you can start talking. But at first, just like get to learn, get to know, and get safe with your body. Yeah.
This is amazing, Sofia. I just love all of this. Thank you for that. That was really insightful and really helpful. I have so many great takeaways from there. I love the point too about focusing on behavior. I think a lot of us, when we think about stress, we think we have to control our minds and just somehow magically get all the stress out of our mind. Mm. And it can feel like a really daunting thing. People say, don't be stressed. Mm. You won't recover. I'm like, how do I not be stressed? But by focusing on the behavior, it's more manageable. It's something you can control. It's something you can tackle.
Right. I just like, if I can just add on that, I think it's just like important to know, like an exercise or something to do with clients. It's like to just think about it. What can you do? Like your body. Like, if I tell you to stop your heart, now just stop your heart. You can't do that. You can't affect that, right? If I tell you to don't be sad when you're sad, it's like like you can't turn that off. If I tell you not to think about a pink elephant, you can think about anything you want, but not a pink elephant. What do you think of? Right. Yeah. And this is so important, because when we have a negative thought that leads to stress, we always tend to go like, oh, I don't want to think this. I don't want to think about that. And that makes the thoughts go bigger and come faster, because that's how our nervous system responds. It thinks, like, our nervous system thinks that if we have a negative thought that we don't want to feel, it responds to it as a threat, which makes it bigger. So if you try to like push away your negative thoughts, they will only become bigger. So when someone tells you like, don't stress about this, you're going to stress about it, right? So that's like, if we think about behavior, I mean, like, let's say, we can keep it really simple. Let's say if you're like sitting on your couch and just like, thinking about everything, and you feel like, I don't know what to do with this. What if you just like stand up, go and get a glass of water?
Mm-hmm.
It might not change your life, but at least you're like breaking the vicious circle. At least you're doing something. Or what if you go and talk to a family member? Or what if you just call a friend? Some of that. So like behavior is a really important part of a recovery, of changing our patterns.
I'm going to start using this, and I'm going to call it out in my head to myself as the pink elephant strategy. So if I'm sitting there in my head stressing over something, going, don't stress, Raelan, be like, you're using the pink elephant strategy. It's not going to work. It's just a good trigger, like a good something to bring my attention and break you out of it. And then, okay, I need to do something else. So you mentioned a checklist earlier. Would you be able to tell us a bit more about that, or tell us what's on it?
Sure. It's not a secret checklist, so I can share it. I usually adapt it, so it's usually individual. But I can share like a few points that are really common, and I think it's important for everyone to think about. Like, even if you're a full-time worker and never been ill, like, and never had like a fatigue condition, it's important for everyone. But especially if you're going through a recovery. Like the first most common point is working hours. If you go back and work 25% or 2 hours a day, and you work between 8 and 10 in the morning, work between 8 and 10. That doesn't mean that you prepare your work at 7:45 in the morning. It doesn't mean that you stay until 10:05. It's like when it's 10 o'clock, you go off work, and it's really important to stick to those hours. The next one is breaks. If you go back from sick leave, you need to think about both breaks and kind of like mini breaks. So you need to think like maybe like 5 minutes an hour that you need a break. It doesn't always have to be like 5 minutes every hour. It could be that you did 2 hours and then 10 minutes of break, if that's something that works for you. But like mini breaks are kind of like the break that you take every 15 minutes. You stop your work, lean back, close your eyes, just wait for a few seconds, or just like stand up, get a glass of water, just like these kind of small breaks. And also remember, like, the definition of a break at work is that you shouldn't think about work, you shouldn't talk about work. So if you're in a lunchroom or something like that, and your colleagues start talking about work during your break, it's not a break, it's work. So that's like really important.
That's a tough one, especially when that's the thing that everybody has in common. It's just an easy default to go to, but you're right. You're still working. That's not a break.
Yeah. I always recommend my clients to be like the rebels. Like, you're gonna have to start like asking people about their weekends or something. Just like you need to talk about anything else than work, because it's like it doesn't become like a good work environment. And also, like, as I talked about before, you need to think about what is the break for me? How do I rest? What do I need to like fill up with energy? Because that's what it's all about. You need energy to be able to work. I usually compare it to like driving a car. Like, you don't go driving for like 5 hours and not knowing like how much fuel you have in your car. You stop and check for fuel, and you stop at a gas station if you need to. And we need to have like the same kind of strategy when we were in a recovery. Like, if I go back to work and I feel tired, I need to take a break before I feel tired. If you drive a car, you need to stop at a gas station, not like stop in the middle of the motorway, because that doesn't work. So like, you need to start feeling like, how much work can I do? And if you feel one day that I can't work 2 hours without a break, Next day, you're going to get a break after 1 hour.
And you do need to know what kind of fuel you need. Maybe that busy break room where everyone's talking about whatever isn't where you recharge. Maybe you go find a quiet space and you put on a guided meditation for 15 minutes. Some of us recharge from more energy and more stuff around us, and some of us really need to go inward a bit and just shut down. So,
yeah. So that's like, I completely agree with you. Like, people need to respect themselves and take care of themselves. Like, if you don't want to go into a lunchroom with your colleagues, if you want to be by yourself, do it. Like, it's your mind, your body. Respect yourself. Do what you need. I think that's important too.
Yeah, absolutely. I find timers are really helpful too, because like you said, I have a tendency to put in, lately I have a lot on my plate. So it's very tempting to just keep going. But if I have an alarm go off on my phone, it breaks me out of what I'm doing. And it's a lot easier.
What kind of workload you have is also really important, both workload and tasks. What kind of tasks? Your workload should be doable for the amount of time you're working. And your work tasks, when you go back to work, you can't have tasks that are like highly cognitive demanding. And this is difficult for some people that work maybe in a store or in a warehouse or places like that. Maybe you will be able to work without like including your mind in the same way. For some people, if they have a work that demands a lot of thinking, a lot of focus, they might need to adapt their work. And that's also depending on your personal condition. Like, sometimes you need less physical work tasks and so on. So we need to adapt them so they can be good for you. For some people, it's actually not good to go back to the same work tasks as you had before. Then, of course, we have like the whole like legal part and the support system part, like how much support can you get? But like, that's my recommendation. Like, can you do the kind of work tasks that you did before, or do you need to adapt them? And then there's like what kind of pace you're working at. You need to have a nice working pace. Like, you can't go to work, have your working day, do this, have your breaks, and thinking, oh, I'm doing good. I'm taking my breaks, and then keep in the same pace. So you need like a nice working pace. And it doesn't mean that you should sleep at work, but it doesn't mean that you should be up here. You need to be somewhere in between. You need to be focused, but also relaxed. For most people I meet, they don't know what is a healthy working pace. So that might be something that you have to explore. Like what's normal? Like, some people I talk to, when I say that I do one thing at a time, which is also something I add on to the list sometimes, like do one thing at a time because it's really important. They're a bit surprised because they're used to doing like 5 things at the same time. Especially now when we have this like working from home thing with COVID and everything. People have one meeting, they have a chat, they have an email, and have their phone, and they're like at all those places at the same time, which is not good. So actually asking people during these times to just be in a meeting is very rare. Yeah.
Yep. That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Guilty.
Yeah, I see that as well. I think it's really common. Yeah. There's I have a few more things I usually add in the checklist, but like there's one really important thing, and that's about setting boundaries. That's so important. I usually talk about setting boundaries like towards others, but also towards myself. To others, we can mean like to say no to things, to say no to work tasks. To say no to things you don't feel capable to do. I usually recommend people to use the strategy, can I come back to you? Or can I get back with that question? Because then you can step back, think about, is this something that I should do? Is this like within my work area? Is this a reasonable work task for me? Is this my responsibility? And then get back and say no or yes. So that's usually a good strategy. And when I talk about setting boundaries towards myself, it's about, closing the computer when my working hours has passed. It's about knowing that I don't need to be perfect or the best at my work all the time. And that's a really important thing to remember, to be kind to yourself and knowing that what you're doing right now is good enough. So that's really important too.
So helpful. So amazing. Thank you, Sofia, for sharing that. I'm sure people will appreciate it. I know I appreciate it. I've taken mental notes here. Like you're right. Yeah. This is the stuff that really everybody should be doing, but is especially important when you're returning to work after you've been on a medical leave. Well, I really can't thank you enough for your time today. This has been so informative. Really, Sofia, thank you so much. I know that it's Friday evening for you when we're doing this. It won't be Friday evening when this goes up, but you're sacrificing your Friday evening to be here to talk to the people on my channel. So it really means a lot. So thank you so much for taking the time to share all of this.
Thank you for inviting me.
If people want to reach you, if they want to learn more, where can they find you?
I have a website, which is in Swedish though. It's sofialundahl.com. And I also have an Instagram account, which is Sofia L Yoga. So there you can reach out if you have any questions or anything.
Great. And those will be linked to the video description if people want to check them out. And as always, looking forward to all of you watching, to hearing your thoughts and your comments. And I'm sure if you have questions about the whole returning to work process for Sofia and you want to put them in the video comments, I imagine she'd be happy to answer them there as well. So that's it. Thank you, everyone who's watching. If you haven't already subscribed, I have a lot of great interviews like this coming up over the next couple of months. Really exciting stuff. So you're not going to want to miss it. So thank you again, Sofia. Thank you to everyone who is watching, and I will see you in the next video.